So in the beginning of the pandemic, speaking February and March 2020, we did not really have an idea what to expect, what was ahead of us. We were aware of the virus in the very beginning, and then we had the terrifying news out of Italy. So we and our employees were in a state of shock. And then from one day to the next, the lockdown was announced in Austria. And even then, we didn't realize immediately that it meant that we had to close down our Alzheimer daycare centers. It took a couple of days to digest and also to tell our clients that we are closing. So first was this, we were all in shock and had no idea what was awaiting us. And then especially the employees were in kind of a survival mode because they were home, the daycare center was closed, and we had no perspective and no idea what the future will bring. And then when we knew that we could reopen, we started thinking towards the future by checking how we could implement the regulations in order to maintain a good quality of life for our clients on the one hand. And we also learned, especially the employees learned to be very flexible and even more creative, to think outside of the box, not to have the strict structures and schedules and routines, but to adapt to the daily needs of the clients and, of course, the regulations that also limited our possibilities. One example is that certain activities were not permitted in closed rooms like this. So whenever the weather permitted it, we went outside with our guests and did singing outside, where we could take off our masks and have the 2-meter distance. Or another thing that changed a lot in the first couple of months of the pandemic is that the digitalization got very advanced. So we had telephone conferences, we had video calls, we did counseling for employees and counseling for relatives of our clients, but also for our clients via telephone or video calls. And so there are certain elements that we would like to keep even after all these restrictions and regulations will end with the end of the COVID-19 pandemic. There are also a couple of things that in retrospect have helped us to manage this crisis pretty well. The mission was always clear, never changed. The mission was always to have the best quality of life for our clients and to offer them activities and structure and a good place to be, and a safe place to be. And on the other hand, in the background, we had our management meetings, which changed a lot in our communication, because in the beginning of the crisis, we had management meetings 3 times a week, where we would discuss and learn and interpret all the regulations, and then in the second step, translate them into an easier language, so all that our employees would understand the regulations, but also our guests and our relatives would understand. It was always important that we communicated not only the regulations, but also gave a perspective and discussed the next step. Our employees prior to the pandemic were used to working in other areas of the company. For example, a nurse from one ward would work in another ward, or work with cleaning ladies, or in the IT department at least one day a year, in order to learn a different culture, a different language, and to understand the working space of other departments. That made it easier in communicating during the crisis, because we all spoke one language, but it also helped us helping each other out when there was shortage of employees in one area. Employees from other areas could help each other. Another big advantage of the digitalization of the last couple of years is that we have a huge database of our clients. So we have all their contact numbers, we have their addresses, we have a list of additional services and care services they have at home. So this way it was easy to stay in contact with them and their relatives, but also to organize help at home, or also organize the vaccinations that took place in the beginning of 2021. We could manage that within a couple of hours or a couple of days, thanks to the huge database that we had. Lastly, we engaged a lot with our stakeholders. On the one hand, it was all the departments that we have in our organization, the different daycare centers or the other departments like the IT department, the facility management, or all the departments that we have, but also outside of the organization with the city of Vienna, with other organizations, with other daycare centers, to exchange experiences, to help each other out, and to learn from each other and support each other. So looking back at the last 1.5 years, it was an extremely challenging time. It was exhausting, but we built on a very good structure and on very good teams and a very good culture that we have in our organization. And for the future, we want to keep all the positive changes that we experienced during the pandemic.